Here we have the rabbit program that we saw in class, and it starts off with rabbit jump, height 4, as a method, then tells the rabbit to run around in a circle, and then the rabbit jumps 2 meters. Let's play it, see what it does. Okay, you can see that we've got two methods called, or one method called here twice, and right now I've got world highlighted. When I highlight rabbit, we can see that the jump method is there. Question is, what do we do when we want that? We want to be able to use that method for a rabbit somewhere else in another program. If we want to use it in this program, it's easy. All we do is we click Add Objects, click our go over here and click Copy to activate copy. Click our rabbit, and now we've got two rabbits that both have that method. Done. Rabbit has the method jump. Rabbit 2 has the method jump. But if we bring in a rabbit from somewhere else, and so we do Add Objects, Search Gallery, Rabbit, here's the same, sort of the same rabbit. It's the rabbit we started off with before we wrote the method. And he comes out kind of small, so we'll resize him and make him twice as big. So he's about the same size as the other rabbits now, but we highlight him. He is rabbit 3, and when we highlight him, we notice we do not have the jump method. That's because we didn't write it. So if we want to use that method in this same program for a different rabbit, all we need to do is copy the rabbit. But if we want to use it in a different program, what we do is we go to one of the rabbits that has the method, right-click on it, and do Save Object. And I'm going to save the object as Jumping Rabbit. And hit Save. I'm going to kill Alice completely and then start it over again, and then I believe it will see my new Alice. You probably only have one rabbit class show up. I had another one out there. So I'm going to open a new world with grass and add objects and search for rabbit. This is the original rabbit that came with Alice, and if I right-click on it, you'll see it has no methods. The methods would be listed down here if there were any. So I'm going to cancel that. And now I've got a couple other rabbits that show up. This one has a method in it, but that method is called Happy Rabbit. That's not the one I just wrote, so I'll cancel that. This rabbit has the method jump. That's the one that's the one I want. So I'm going to add an instance of that to the world. And there it is. And now I could use that rabbit. Let's go over and look at its method. Yes, there's the jump method, and if we edit it, we can see it is the method that causes the rabbit to jump up and spin around and then jump back down. Okay, that's it for saving an object and importing it into a different program. No, don't want to save the world. Now we're going to have a look at the beetle band that we did in class. And of course, you're not just supposed to be looking at these things, you're supposed to be doing them on your computer. The reason we do these on video is because not everybody can bring a computer to class. And if they did, all the computers would work differently with different operating systems at different speeds. So we do that part of our work at home. And if we hit play here, so you can see this, you can see we've got our 4 beetles lined up here, each one with a different instrument. There's no code written yet, so when I hit play, they don't actually do anything. They just stand there. I only hit play to make a bigger picture. First thing we want to do is if we look over here, we see we have George Beetle, Lennon Beetle, Paul Beetle, and Ringo Beetle. For some reason, when the Alice folks made the Beatles, they gave John Lennon his last name and George, Paul, and Ringo their first names. So let's rename Lennon Beetle to John Beetle. Okay, next thing we wanted to do, now that he's been renamed, is we want to create a method, a generic method that will accept parameters that can cause each beetle to jump up and down, and each beetle is a different object, and take his instrument with him and play a sound on his instrument when the method is called with the appropriate parameters. And so to start with that, we can't have John Beetle highlighted here because then it would be a John Beetle level method, and that's definitely a design no-no, because we could not then export John Beetle and have that method work. It won't work anywhere but in a program that has John, Paul, Ringo, George, and the 4 instruments that they play as objects, and the sounds. We need 12 different things in the program for that to work. And so you would never export that or you would never create it as an object level method. Instead, it has to be a world level method. So I'm going to click world to make that method. Then edit. And oops, that's edit my first method, sorry. I want to create new method. In class, we did a storyboard and we designed this first. I can't really do that with this software. I can't show you the design, but please remember you always need to design your software before you write it. Otherwise, you end up with a real mess. Our method, and I do have the design in front of me on paper here. Our method will be Beetle Jump and Play. And I'll use lowercase to start it with because that's how Alice starts its methods. And in Beetle Jump and Play, first thing I want is a do together block because I'm going to want them jumping up and down and playing their instrument all at the same time. Then I'm going to want to do an order block because I want them to jump up first, then jump down at the same time they're playing the instrument. And so next thing I need to do is tell the beetle to jump up and down. Now I've got a little problem here. Normally, from what we've done in the past, we would drag the beetle object in here, and then it would want to know what we want to do with it. Or we would click the beetle object and then pick a method for it. Well, there is no beetle object because it's a generic method that can take any object we send it. So what we have to do instead is we create a new parameter, and it is an object parameter, and we're going to give it a name, Beetle. And note that although I'm giving it a name, Beetle, the method doesn't care if it's a beetle or a teacup or what. It's going to make it jump it up and down. Okay, now that I have an object, I can drag the object down to my do and order block, and I can say Beetle move up 1 meter. Then, after I get that done, I can left click on this, make a copy. I want to make the beetle move down 1 meter, so I'm going to click down 1 meter here. But notice it says none here. I don't know why Alice didn't just copy beetle, but for some reason, when it's a parameter, it doesn't do that. Not a big problem. I just click on the little arrow next to none, go down to expressions, and pick beetle. Now I've got it saying beetle move up 1 meter, beetle move down 1 meter. Let's go back to my first method, call this for each beetle, and see what happens. Now, notice our world's details are here. Our world level methods are there. Drag that over, drop it, and we'll start off with George Beetle and the entire George Beetle. Next, we'll do, we'll just copy this, but we'll change the beetle to John Beetle. And copy this and change the Beetle to Paul Beetle. And I'm just putting them in order here as they show up. I think in class I did them in a different order. If you want a different order, that's fine. So we've got George, John, Paul. We need Ringo yet. And Ringo shows up last here, the entire Ringo Beetle. And let's play. Okay, so we've got him leaving his instrument behind, him taking his instrument, and all three of these guys leave their instrument behind. Only he takes his instrument. That's because his instrument is set to him as the vehicle. So we have three instruments to set to the vehicles. Okay, so only John had his instrument using him as a vehicle. So let's go to the other instruments and set the vehicle. So we've got guitar here, and pick methods and set vehicle to George Beetle, the entire George Beetle. And then the Tim Bell's cowbell. Methods, set vehicle to Ringo Beetle, the entire Ringo Beetle. And then Paul, sax. Methods, set vehicle to Paul Beetle, the entire Paul Beetle. Okay, now everybody should stick with their everybody's instrument should stick with them. We test that. And it's always good to test things when you're executing or when you're building them so that you don't end up with a big problem down the road. Okay, so that is all working. Now let's add in the music.